Hello and welcome to the 8th video in the Unity Basics series where we are going to learn about the sprite renderer and how to import sprites from the Unity Asset Store. So you see right here I have a blank scene with nothing inside of it, and what we're going to do right now is we're just going to right click, create a 2D object, a sprite, and then a square. We can just name it square, and we see we have a square that we can drag around, and if we go into the game view we can see that it is a square. And that's because of this sprite renderer right here, this component. And inside the sprite renderer, what we want to look at is this first column, the sprite. If you hover over it, it says the sprite to render, which is just what we're going to render. And you can see right here, this is the thing that it's rendering, a square. If we click on this, we can choose a different sprite. Unity has a few right here that we can use, like circle. So if we can change this to a circle, we can change this to something like a triangle, or an isometric triangle, and then you can do stuff like that. So I'm just going to move this back to a square by just typing square, and that's what you can do with the sprite render in here. But what if you create an empty game object? So we can go into the scene and create an empty game object, and you can see that if we go into it and we go into the game view, there's nothing there and we can't see it, but it's there and we know it's there because we see it in our hierarchy. We can add a sprite renderer component to it, and then we're going to have to choose a sprite for it to render. Right now it's rendering nothing, so it's not rendering anything. We can click on this and then we can type something like circle into it, and then we have this circle right here. If you're not seeing the circle, make sure to click this button so it is able to see all of the sprites you can use and not just the UI sprites. That's what these things are. That's why they're very small, because they're not supposed to be met in actual sprite renders. They're supposed to be used in UI. But we can put things like triangles, squares, anything into an empty game object if we just add a sprite renderer. And that's what you can do with this sprite renderer. But if you're making an actual game, and you're just using a square as the player, as like jump and move around and stuff like that, that seems kind of boring. And the background, if that's just a big square, if you go to this game view, if the background's just a big square that's a different color, that's not really fun, is it? We want imported sprites, or sprites that we can make or that we can get from somebody else, and then we can use those sprites instead. So that's what we're going to do. So if you can open up your default browsing app and type in Unity Asset Store, and then once you go to that, you can go to the first link, which is the Unity Asset Store. Once we're here inside of this Unity Asset Store, what we can do is we can go up to this top where it has all of these little tabs. We can go to 2D because we are in a 2D game, and 3D sprites won't look as good inside of a 2D game. What we can do right now is then click this free. Just so for this example right here, I'm going to be importing a free asset so that you guys can follow along too. If you have another asset that you would like to import or buy then import, then I would recommend you follow along with that one instead. You can look at all of these assets right here, and then you can pick one that you would like. I think I like this asset right here, this pixel art platformer. And you can see here, once you click on it, we just get a little preview right here. We can see all of these different things that this person has added to it, so we can see, and then we can see all of the things before we add it to our assets. And then I'm just going to click add to my assets, and then it's going to take us to signing into our Unity ID. And then once we do that, we're going to click sign. And then once we have that, it's going to take us back to here, and it's going to say you purchased this item, and then we can write a review if we want. I'm not going to be doing that right now, but what I'm going to do is click open in Unity, and then it's going to put up this little tab. It's going to say it wants to open up in this application, and this application is going to be Unity, or the Unity project that we have open right now. You can check this tab, always open Unity Asset Store.unity.com to open links inside of Unity, but I'm just going to keep this unchecked right now. And then I'm going to click Open Unity Editor. And then normally it would open the Unity editor, and if you didn't have one open, you can choose a Unity project to open it up in. But since we already have a Unity project open, it's going to take us to here. It will take us to our package manager. Then it will take us to our assets, and then it will take us to this. These are all of the assets that I have downloaded for games and for videos. And this is the one right here, pixel art, platformer, village, props. And I'm going to click import, and then it's going to import these assets into my game. Once it's imported, we'll get something like this, where it's going to give us all the things that we can import, all of this stuff. I'm just going to keep this all checked for right now, but if you don't want to import something specific, if you don't want to open the moving platform script, you could just uncheck that and then it won't import for you. And then we can just click import, and then it will import all of those assets that we have checked into our assets folder inside of our Unity game. Once it's imported, it will give us a folder down in our assets folder, and then we can click on that. But I want to direct your attention to this little line in the overview right here. It says 32 by 32 village prop sprites for platformer games. This is very important when you're importing sprites for games, or like player sprites or enemy sprites. You have to find something like this. This one says 32 by 32, and that's going to be the sprite size, and that's going to be very important in just a moment. We can X out of this, and then we can double click on these folders just to see what we want to go. We can go to this pixel art platformer. If we want to go to a tile set, there's the tile set. If we want to go to something, the prefabs, we can just drag in a prefab right here. You can see that this prefab just looks just like a village prop, and that's what we want. It already has a box collider on it, and that's what these prefabs will do, though they are basically just already game objects that we don't need to do anything with. We're going to make this a bit bigger. Something like this, we don't really need to do anything with these prefabs. We can just drag them into our game to make our game look a bit nicer. Just things like that. And that's how you import those sprites. But then you can also go into our square, this that we created a long time ago, go to our sprite, and then click on here, and then there's going to be a lot more sprites that we can search for right here. Like if we want to, these are just all the tiles, just for example. We want to do this tile, the images have not loaded yet, so I can't really see what they look like, but we can see what they look like right there, and right here. Scale this up a bit. This is what this tile will look like, and we can just change this. So we can either drag in these prefabs right here, or we can create a square and then just change the sprites on it to something like that, to have like a dirt thing or something. If you want to do that, then that is another way to be able to import your sprites instead of just dragging and dropping them in. The 32 by 32 is important because down here in this texture right here with all of these sprites, if we go into here, it's going in the inspector, it's going to give us all of this. Let's just click sprite editor for a moment, and then we're going to see this. I'm not really sure what this is. If we X out, we can see what it is. It's the torch flame. So I guess this is an animation for the torch flame, which is good. This looks like a nice animation. And what we can see is if we click out and we go to pixels per unit, and this is 100, but that's not actually correct. The pixels per unit, as we knew, was 32. So that's why you have to pay attention, because we have to remember the pixels per unit, or how many pixels per one Unity unit are they, because then we will be able to make the assets look correct. Then, if you have a whole texture right here, or something like this with multiple sprites in one texture, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to go to this, you're going to get out of this sprite editor, you're going to go to this sprite mode, and it says single, and we're going to click multiple. That means there's more than one sprite in here. Then we're going to have to click apply, so it's going to apply the multiple, and then go to sprite editor, and then we're going to click slice, and it's going to slice it into different sprites that we can each use. And then for type, we're going to go to grid by cell size. We each go to 32 by 32, but that doesn't really look correct. So what we can do here is we can do something like 16 by 16, and then we can offset this a bit if we want. Just move it over. Just something to make all of these boxes will be a different sprite. So if we're going to want to change this, so if we want to make this 32 by 32, we're going to have to get a sprite around each and every one of these, and you can do that by fooling around with the pixel size and fooling around with the offset just to make it all fit with each of these things. Once you're happy with this, maybe I'm happy with this, and I think this is a good thing, we can go to, once we're in slice, we can click slice, and then it will slice all the sprites for us. We can click apply, and then it gives us all these new sprites. So inside of this torch thing, we can go out, and it has all of these sprites, which is what we wanted. We've changed something like this with all of those sprites into something like this, where there's just the individual sprites, where we can use them for different animations. So we can just like make all of these into one animation file that we can put on the torch or something like that. I hope you enjoyed this Unity Basics tutorial. If you did enjoy this, please make sure to share this video, like it, and subscribe to our channel for more updates on the Unity Basics and this channel. Thank you.